Well, we are fortunate this evening at our meeting. Our first speaker is the Arizona Secretary of State. He is the incumbent, Adrian Fontes. He's a candidate for reelection. As you all know, Secretary Fontes is an Arizona native. He's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps and the father of three daughters. We are, as I said, most fortunate to have him, and he's willing to spend 20 minutes talking to us and then answering questions. So, Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours.
This is a really, really important moment in American history, particularly odd and interesting timing that it comes on the semi-quincentennial, the eve of our 250th anniversary in July, and we're being tested. Many prior generations have been tested in a lot of different ways, but we've never been challenged by our own leadership in the executive branch. We've never been challenged by a legislative branch of the federal government who has just abdicated the checks and balances that they should be exercising in the traditional oversight role that Congress should have. We've never been here before, and isn't that lucky? I mean, isn't it really interesting and amazing that we get to be the folks who are going through this? We get to be the folks who determine what it is that the history books are going to say about this moment in time. We get to meet the challenge. And when you look at it that way, boy, this is an amazing opportunity. And or the alternative is just to be frustrated and to suffer and to clutch the pearls and to say, oh, all is lost, and to just kind of surrender into a bucket of Haagen-Dazs and reruns of Grey's Anatomy, if that's your shtick. But that's not where we are. I relish the role that I get to play, to be literally at the tip of the spear, in many cases nationally, fighting directly against the Trump administration's overreach into what is a state duty, and that is the administration of our elections, the single most foundational right that we have. We get to be front and center to this battle, this political battle against the forces of authoritarianism. And isn't that a wonderful blessing and a curse at the same time, really depending on which side of the coin you want to look at. But that depends on us and our attitude. And then we have to look towards what is it that we're going to do. Well, let me just take a couple of minutes and talk about what we've done in the secretary's office so far. And not all of it has to do with elections. Let's just be painfully obvious. We've been increasing efficiencies and really getting a job done for the last several years. And at the end of the day, that's what people want. They just want public officials that are going to get the job done. So when we look to something as simple as public records and what's available for folks to look at so that transparency actually lives, we've created the ASTRA program. It's the Arizona State Trusted Electronic Repository. It's named after a flower. That's the only way I can remember it. And what that does is it creates a digital repository for all the digitally native documents that we have in Arizona so that you can go and look at what has been created by the variety of state agencies that participate in that program without having some go-between tell you whether or not you can have these public records. They're there. And we're slowly but surely rolling this out into other spaces, but we had to create it first. And that's a big deal when it comes to transparency across government. Slowly but surely, more state agencies, school districts, municipalities, and other kinds of governmental county agencies as well will be able to use Aster. And as it grows, our government will be more transparent. But the foundational tool had to be built, and we've built it. Nobody really hears about that. Nobody really talks about it. But it fundamentally is what our free and fair and open government should be about. And that's in the library and archives section, in the business section, but we've done some amazing things. We've taken call times that were really long and many lost calls, and we've reduced that just because we reorganized the way we were answering the phones. And that does a lot. It improves our capacity to serve people well. They're getting their questions answered regarding a lot of small business stuff, regarding apostilles to foreign governments, regarding trademark and trade names. We've really improved what has happened in that section and others across the institution. But for elections, really the administration of elections runs right through the Secretary of State's office. And I couldn't be more proud of the achievements that we've had over the last 4 years. We're the first administration, I think, for probably 15 or close to 20 years anyway, that has published two election procedures manuals in a row. And it was a lot of politics in the past. It was a lot of lawsuits. And sure, there have been lawsuits, but we've defended and protected our work very, very well because we did it well. We did it right. We found ways to pay for the county's portion of the voter registration system so that the county dollars could stay in those election administration offices and they could be more efficient with the work that they do. We've made sure to encourage counties to open up their own levels of transparency. In fact, for the non-Maricopa and Pima counties, where I brought the ballot tracking system, all counties now have ballot tracking. So any voter who gets their ballot in the mail gets that text or email ahead of time. And when the ballot goes back to the election department, they get another text or an email. That's accountability. That's us holding government to account from the position of government. That's a big deal. And that's really what has staved off a lot of the election denialism, a lot of the rumor mongering and, mythologies that have been out there because we've been so transparent. And we know the grift is going to remain. We know those folks are going to continue to try to kill ballot by mail. We'll talk about that in a minute. We know they're going to continue to lie about me and my administration. That's just raw politics, and we're okay with that because liars are going to lie. That's what they do. But really, what I'm most excited about that my staff has been able to do is to rebuild some of the lost trust, to make sure that we stay ahead of the game when it comes to training our elections officials, like we did in 2024 and like we are doing for 2026. In fact, what a lot of people don't know is that in 2024, Arizona on election day alone had 15 bomb threats, attempts to disrupt our democracy. And guess what? Our longest delay was about 20 minutes up in a very remote polling place in Navajo County. That's all. And that's because we made sure that our county officials, the emergency managers, the elections officials, state, local, and federal law enforcement were all coordinated very, very well with our office to be able to respond to these threats immediately and make sure we could gather up whatever intelligence we needed to get it analyzed and get it taken care of very quickly. 2024 was pretty eventless. Results notwithstanding, it was pretty eventless, and that's a really, really good thing. 2026, however, is coming under a lot of other kinds of threats. And we've got to pay very close attention to the nature of these threats and the actual possible results. Let's think about that for a minute. Threats are designed to keep people from voting. Threats are designed to keep people at home, to shut down voices. So what should we do? We should vote. We should register more people. We should get out there and be uncomfortable in the activities that we as Democrats do. Why? Because, like I said earlier, this is our moment. This is our time. The universe put us here, every single one of us on this phone call and across the state, in this particular moment in American history, so that we could be uncomfortable. And not just scared uncomfortable or frustrated uncomfortable, uncomfortable in getting out there and registering more voters, uncomfortable in getting the signatures on those ballot initiatives that we need so that we can put ballot by mail in the Constitution. Think about this, folks, when you think about what you're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks. If the governor and myself and Chris Mays have an initiative on the ballot that we can campaign on as a positive step forward for voters to preserve that ballot by mail in our Constitution, like 80% of our voters right now enjoy, we've got a positive message. We're not just fighting against things, defending against the attacks, signing vetoes, stopping legislation. We are on the attack, and we're showing people that we can make good things happen for them. We're getting the job done. We can count on you to help us, I hope, to get that Protect the Vote AZ initiative on the ballot. It's critically important that we're not just running in defense of our Constitution, in defense of our rights, in defense of our democracy, protecting your vote. All well and good. But what are we doing to advance, to move forward, to show initiative, to push the envelope towards more transparency, more accountability, and more of those things that voters really like? This initiative, protectthevoteaz.com, not protect the vote. That's the right wing guys. Protectthevoteaz.com is where you should go to find out more information if you don't already have it. This is people power. There's not a lot of money behind this thing. I really hope we can get it on the ballot. And it's going to count on people like you. People like you spending a couple hours in front of the library or at your community centers, talking to your neighbors, your friends, your family, getting those signatures one by one, 10 by 10, 100 by 100, 1,000 by 1,000. We need almost 400,000 valid signatures to qualify. You can help us do that. And you can give us, as Democrats, at the top of the ticket, something to run towards, something to run on, something to make voters feel like we're doing something for them, regardless of their politics. That's what this initiative does. And that's what I'm so hopeful you will help us to do. So if there's a call of action here, other than, oh, I don't know, contribute to my campaign at electfontes.com, which you can do whenever you want, help us get this initiative on the ballot too. It's a big deal. So we've done a ton in my office. I'm here to help, and I'm also here to answer some questions. I think I've taken up most of the time that was allotted. If not, I'll take up a little more and just happily answer some questions. And I'll turn it back over to Barbara to
All
coach us
right.
through for as long as you need, Barbara. I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Monica is going to organize the questions that are coming in for you. And in the meantime, I want to ask you a question that I've been, I think the elephant in the room, at least for me, is what, if anything, can the state of Arizona, can the Secretary of State office do if ICE shows up at polling places on election day?
Well, first, let me be super clear about something. The threat of ICE is what is important. The likelihood of ICE showing up in mass all over the place is very, very dim. It's very, very low. There's a whole bunch of reasons behind that, but really the tactic of trying to threaten people, that's the big problem that we have. So, um, if in fact that sort of thing happens, we have been working very diligently with a lot of local law enforcement, sheriffs, and police divisions. We've been talking with the Attorney General's office and the governor's office about the approach that we're going to take if such nonsense were to happen. Now, we've already been given a little bit of a hint by the Republicans in the legislature about what they think about this. Remember back during the session, oh, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, when they introduced legislation to allow ICE to go into the polling places? They know it's illegal or they wouldn't have introduced legislation to allow it. And in fact, they know it would be against the law for anyone but a voter or an authorized poll worker or observer. Now, here's the really important thing is we need more observers too. So once we've gotten folks on the ballot, go to your county party chair because they're the only person authorized to sign people up. And your county party is going to be able to train you as well. You know that army of election mercenaries that, Trump was supposed to deploy and go out there and do all this stuff? Well, they do it every year, and so do we. They're called poll observers. There's folks just like you on this call. But we've got to have plenty of people out there, the eyes and ears that are going to help us make sure that we protect everyone's ballots. But in other words, we're going to do what we need to do. But there's one other thing that we can do to avoid all this nonsense. When you get your ballot, give yourself a time limit, 72 hours. 72 hours from the moment that ballot arrives. Look it over, check your initiatives, read what you want to read about your candidates, vote that ballot and send it back immediately. Don't make the organizers, the leaders, and your friends and neighbors who are going to be chasing ballots reduce the amount of stress that we've got because we're going to chase a lot of ballots this year. We don't want to chase yours. We want yours in the bank. We want yours back at the county elections department tabulated so that those numbers are in there. Don't wait, please. Absolutely don't wait. And then if there are any shenanigans on election day, Well, at the very least, you don't have to worry about your ballot. But we're not super worried about ICE at the polling places. We've got a plan to deal with it on election day. And the plan to deal with it ahead of time is that every single person we talk to follows that rule. 72 hours after you see that ballot in the mail, send it back to the election department.
Thank
Okay,
you,
the
Mr.
first
Secretary.
question. This will be our first state election with the ticket of governor and lieutenant governor. If you know, when must Governor Hobbs name her choice? And do you know who it might be? And how does this affect your role?
Well, I'll answer the last one first. It makes me very, very happy because it depoliticizes the secretary's office. I'm no longer first in line. I'll be second in line for the governorship, which is like, because look, the secretary's office should be depoliticized, and we've been very, very good at working with Republicans and Democrats across the state all these 3.5 years. You know, folks don't mind working with me because I'm not hyper political. I am a Democrat. Everybody knows I'm a Democrat, but I'll listen. I'll listen to folks all over the political spectrum, even if I think they're just dead flat wrong. They deserve to be listened to if their voters voted for them in their district. That's a common courtesy that I'll extend. But as far as when the governor needs to name her lieutenant governor partner, I guess, co-candidate, what do we call the vice president as to the president on there? Running mate, that's the word. Um, Sometime before the ballots get printed would prefer would be my preference and the preference of all of the county folks. Some people say that she should have done it already, and they should have a team out there, promoting her and running around and doing whatnot. I'm not really a political prognosticator. I'm not going to criticize their rationale. I don't know what their rationale is. And to answer that middle question, I have no idea whatsoever who the governor is going to pick. They've been playing that deck very close to the chest. And fine, it's her prerogative. She is the governor, and she gets to decide. So I'm going to respect her and her space in this. And I'm sure she will pick somebody perfectly competent to take over the reins of state government, should God forbid anything happen to her. And I'll be happy to support that person. But the bottom line is, that's a lot of political crystal ball stuff right now. We've got bigger fish to fry, and that real big fish is getting these important initiatives, including the ESA initiative and protect the vote initiative on the ballot. That in my view is really critical.
Okay, next question. What are the likely avenues Trump and MAGA will use to throw out the midterm election, and how will your office respond?
Well, first, they're not going to throw out the election. So let's just get over all that nonsense. And are they going to try? They're already trying. They're already redistricting. They're already cheating the rules. They're already issuing, these executive orders that are total bullshit. And they know it's wrong. They know, here's the problem. If they were so confident in their policies and so confident that the nation was behind them, they wouldn't change a friggin' thing. They'd be like, status quo, baby. The country loves us. We're good to go. We're going to win more of a majority. If they knew that, if that's what their polling showed, they wouldn't bother looking terrible. They wouldn't bother pretending, looking like they were trying to change the rules mid-game. But they know different. They understand that they're going to get their butts handed to them in November, and they are scared to death. Don't ever forget that. They're scared of the voters. And that tells you where the ultimate power lies. They know this. And they know they can't stop, overturn, interfere their way into a majority. So they've got to kind of monkey around with it and in desperation because they understand the power is with you, the voters. They're scared of you. So when you hear these rumors, when you hear these shenanigans, they're afraid of the American public because they know they're not serving you and they know you're not stupid. They know you're going to vote against them. That's why they're so scared. If they were right, they wouldn't be doing this stuff. Don't ever forget that, y'all. Like, I know people are like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I'm so scared. Cut it out. They're scared. Don't be like, don't be scared of them. They're scared of you. Capitalize on that. Talk to your friends and neighbors. And every single person, let me add this. Every single person that says to you, "Oh, politics, I really don't do politics. I kind of try to stay out of that. I don't do politics." Well, you can look at them in the eye and tell them this. Your gas tank does politics. Your grocery bill does politics. And if you're saying you don't do politics, guess what? That doesn't matter because politics is doing you. You let them know because it's true and they know it. Now, they might be avoiding the conversation, but at the very least, you can make them feel a little guilty. That's always a lot of fun.
Okay, next question. Are there any polls you can share for your race and the governor's race?
Um, we haven't done any polling in my race that I'm aware of or that I'm at liberty to disclose. But there was some public polling done in the governor's race, and she maintains a reasonable lead. There is a bit of a interesting development, though, because Mike Noble over at, I can't remember what the name of his company is, but they do the Arizona Pop poll periodically, and he has shown that the no labels guy, the independent guy, Hugh Lytle, actually is pulling about 4 or 5% of the vote right now. I can't remember exactly which. Very interestingly, though, he's pulling from both sides. So the because he's pulling from both sides, the governor's lead has narrowed. If it's just A versus B, and the governor's looking like she's in, I don't know, up by 7, right? And 5% of the total gets pulled. Now she's up by a little bit less. Still up proportionately the same, but now there's that third player. So in that race, I find that very interesting. Um, because this third party challenger is challenging from both sides and he's on the ballot. He won all his court cases. So that's a dynamic that I don't think we've seen in Arizona in quite some time. And so the A versus B analysis, given the fact that this guy's got a few $1 million of his own that he's going to be pitching in, given the fact that a lot of people are sick of both parties, it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. Um, but as to my race, we haven't got anything out there except for like the random call sheet polls from the online betting folks. And somebody showed it to me the other day, and I have like an 88% chance of getting reelected or something like that. I don't know. So we're looking okay, but we're not taking anything for granted. We're putting one foot in front of the other every single day. I was in Casa Grande today, talking with some voters. I went to the library and met some folks who were doing some petition gathering right outside of the public library there, thanking them and those volunteers for their work. So I was in Cottonwood last week, talking to a lot of voters and stuff. So we're getting around the state and we're going to keep doing the work necessary to bring it home. But we certainly could use your support as well.
Okay, next question. How can Trump use the USPS to disrupt mail-in voting?
That's a really interesting question. Um, I think that it's possible that the president could theoretically try to make some orders. I don't know what actual authority he has over the United States Postal Service. I don't think there's much because there's a governing board that gets appointments, and I don't think he has any direct authority. That having been said, let's not forget who runs the United States Postal Service. They're veterans. These are a lot of folks who are really interested in doing right by the American public. This is the ultimate in like government sort of activity, and that is getting those pieces of mail out there. And they don't just do letters; they do prescriptions, they do packages at Christmas time. I mean, these are folks that really just like they've got a long tradition of taking care of the American public. So the idea that they could be easily manipulated into doing bad stuff, I don't buy it. I don't buy it so much. I think they'd have a lot of resistance from inside of the organization. And it's a big organization. So for this president to step in and say, oh, you're not going to be delivering, ballots by mail, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he has the capacity to do that. And there would certainly be a lot of legal challenges to that instantly. if he tries. I know that there are folks working on that. So we're looking at all the contingencies.
Okay, next question. Arizona was gerrymandered in 2020 to favor Republicans. Why can't we return to our fair maps done in 2010?
Well, we can't because we're one of the first states, in fact, I think the first state to have an independent redistricting commission. The bigger problem that I have with 2020 was that the census was so poorly done. We should have had at least one more congressional seat, if not two. So we're behind in that regard. And look, gerrymandering is as American as apple pie and baseball. It's been happening forever, and I think what we need to do is pay close attention to who is doing the appointments on the system that we as the voters created, and setting up those rules appropriately. I think we have some really, really I think we have a really good process that is run by human beings. And any process that you have, no matter how good, that's run by human beings, can be manipulated by human beings. But at the same time, we've got some underlying things that are critically important. We've got to take back the legislature, folks. We've got to take back the state house and the state senate. And by take it back, I mean win it for the first time in 60 years. 60 years the Republicans have been running roughshod over this state. And it's kind of insane that we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect better results. So so far as the Independent Redistricting Commission is concerned, I get that the 2010 maps were more favorable to Democrats. I think there's plenty of people that can say, well, the Democrats pulled some quick ones on that. It's not an unreasonable argument. I don't agree with it, but it's not unreasonable. You can look at the 2020 maps and say the same things about the Republicans. But this is the blood sport that is American politics, right? You win some, you lose some, and if you lose, you try harder next time. And we've got the wind at our backs right now. To remember how scared these guys are. Remember how worried they are. And now think about CD6. Joe Mendoza down there, she's going to kick the crap out of Siscomani. And in CD1, David Schweikert's leaving that seat wide open. We get the right candidate in there, we're going to win that seat. And don't count out Jonathan Nez up in the north and eastern part of the state. He could send Eli Crane packing. And that would be a flip of 3 seats in Arizona alone, 3 congressional seats out of our 11. That would be a very big deal. And I think it would be very welcome. In fact, I saw some numbers that showed Hamadeh's seat kind of in play. And I'm like, I wouldn't go that far. But I think we're in decent enough shape. And I wouldn't necessarily lament where we are. I would just work a hell of a lot harder to make it so that the 2030 redistricting is a lot more healthy. I think as a party, we didn't do anything in 2020 to fight back. I mean, we didn't have the experts out there. We didn't have the testimony ready. We as a party were absolutely not ready to confront the Independent Redistricting Commission and engage in that process. We didn't have organized resistance at the hearings and the input that is necessary. We did very little of all of that. There was some there, but it really didn't rise to what an organized state party should have done. So we need to look very carefully at what the process is going to look like, and we need to engage in the process and be part of that process so that it does happen in the light of day, and we do get better results than we had in 2020.
Okay, 2 final questions. This one has a lot of abbreviations, so will we see you at the SOS? I assume that Save Our Schools LNA next month. Does that ring a bell?
I know what SOS is. Oh, the Secretary of State's Logic and Accuracy Test, maybe? Which county? For Pima?
It doesn't say,
Okay,
but I assume it's Pima.
Okay, so SOS LNA is the Secretary of State every year, every election does what's called LNA testing, logic and accuracy testing. The logic and accuracy test is where we get a pre-marked set of ballots and we run them through the county systems. And we have to have different ballots because the different systems have different ballot styles. It's all very technical. I will not be involved in those because as it stands right now, I have endorsed some candidates in some primaries. which is perfectly my right to do. So I don't want to be at the LNAs, which are where my office team certifies the accuracy of the tabulation itself. Now, at the end, once all the ballots are tabulated and it's all counted, I'm basically signing a certificate where the math came out of the county offices, but I'm not going to be engaged on the front side of those things. So sadly, no, you will not see me at any LNA testing. However, you will see a lot of snacks because traditionally elections officials bring lots and lots of snacks to the LNA tests. So if you're lucky enough to get in there, watch your insulin count, I guess.
And I have the final question. As a poll worker, I often see your name in the paper about the Republicans are suing you over the election manual. Is there
Yeah.
anything I should be worried about or know about?
Know this, they have nothing else. They have nothing else but their foolish, expensive, taxpayer wasting lawsuits against us. It is lawfare, top to bottom. When we draft the elections procedures manual, let me tell you how it works. We get the old manual and then we bring in a draft of the first section. We'll do like, say, there's 15 chapters and we're doing it over 5 months. We'll take 3 chapters. And that 3 chapters we will make edits to, which includes all the new statutes, all the new case law, and whatever adjustments we feel like need to be made for technological reasons or whatever. And we send it out to all 15 counties. And all 15 counties will have input. And then that's out there for some weeks. And then we get together, the entire state of all the elections officials get together and we hash out what it's actually going to end up looking like. And that well discussed, well input, well edited version ends up going, okay, bam, that's the first section. Then we do another section and another section and another section. 5 months later, we, not me, everybody in the state has had input. We put out a draft and we get comments. Now, the courts have been very clear. The Elections Procedures Manual is not subject to the regular public input for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the mandate says that this has to be promulgated every 2 years. And if we were subject to the regular rules, there's no way we would be able to promulgate this thing every 2 years. It would be an impossibility. And so we, like so many other secretaries, have opened it up for public input, and the public gets to have input. And remember, the EPM is for elections officials. It's not for the general public. It's how to run elections, not how to be an elector, a voter, right? So after all of that time and all that energy and all of that input, every odd numbered year for the first full 5 months and then the public period, then that last final draft goes to the governor and the attorney general, and their teams will sign off. And they've been involved the whole time too. So it's a really thorough year-long process. And then the Republicans start suing. And you know what? Let them. Let them sue. Now, I'm not happy about it because it wastes taxpayer dollars and they usually lose their lawsuits. But here's the bottom line. It's the only thing that they can do. They don't see any policies that I'm doing, any of the actual stuff that we're doing in this office that they can attack us with because they know we're doing everything really, really well. And look at the kinds of attacks that they have. It's the same as the Pima County Republican Party just sued us for. They don't want us to be able to limit folks from blasting loud noises just outside the 75-foot line with like loudspeakers that would harass voters who are exercising their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble for the purpose of voting. To hell with the voters' First Amendment rights, says the chairwoman of the Pima County Republican Party. I want to be able to make all the noise and get right in their faces, right up to that line. Or I want to be able to have all these folks out there with their signs and their long rifles just outside that 75-foot line. Well, my elections procedures manual says it matters what happens inside that 75-foot line and how people outside that line are impacting the voters who are standing in that line. Because I care about the voters. I don't care about, what is her name? Catherine Wynn? Is that her name? I've never met her. I'm sure she's a lovely person. Anyway, the Elections Procedures Manual has been turned into a political football by the Republicans because they don't have anything else to attack me on because we're doing so well. And we're doing everything we can, and we will continue to do everything we can to push back against the extremism, call the liars, mythologists, and misleaders out for what they are, and continue to protect your votes. That's all I want to do as Secretary of State. So if you want to help us out, if you want to jump in, do a couple of things. First of all, capture the moment. Be uncomfortable right now because history has given us an amazing opportunity, as I said. Number two, help us get protectthevoteaz.com, that Protect the Vote initiative on the ballot. That's going to be critically important for my race, for the Attorney General's race, and for the governor's race. And number three, please, as much as you can, go to electfontes.com, pitch in, give us a donation. That absolutely helps. And the little last bonus on that one is, as many of you may have seen on social media, our donors, they get a hand-signed thank you postcard from my mom and all her 82 years of supporting, her family, particularly the last 56 with this guy, her youngest son. Thank you so much for having me, you all. It's been great. I hope we've learned a little bit from each other today, and I hope I've been able to, over the last 3.5 years, earn enough of your support to be able to do another 4 years after the election. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you, and I was happy to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We're lucky to have you. So thank you for spending your evening with us. We appreciate it.
It was great. Thanks.